Hello YouTube, this is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. And today I would like to talk with you about the process of what are the actual things that happen when you seek to manifest your reality from the quantum field. What are the steps and what happens, and why you may have to go through a dark night of the soul in order for your intentions to fully manifest in physical reality. Hello and welcome back to the channel. And here, this is the YouTube channel that I don't just sit here and talk to you. I actually give you practical tools that I myself use. I only talk about what I personally do, what I can personally achieve, and what I have personally experienced. We're not here to just talk about theory. So if I tell you anything, it's because I have experienced this and mapped this out. And this is the best way to learn from somebody. Somebody who isn't so far above you that you can never accomplish them. Somebody who hasn't accomplished what you've accomplished, or somebody who just talks in generalities about, like in church when they just talk about things. They can talk about Jesus all day long, but they can't do what Jesus supposedly did. The best person to learn from is somebody who's maybe just a couple of steps ahead of you, and that's only because they've done what you're wanting to do, and I'm that person. So I'm here to tell you that spiritual evolution, energetic evolution, shifting to 5D, healing yourself of disease, creating prosperity in your life, creating a brand new reality, having a very vibrant, powerful, personal interaction with spiritual beings we would call spirit guides. That is done through your actions. There are specific skills, specific things that you must do in order to accomplish all of what I just said. And on this channel, I give you those tools. I'm going to spell out for you today the process of what happens, but that information isn't enough. It might be helpful, might help you become aware of who you are, but for most people, that knowledge in and of itself will not give you the power to accomplish what I'm going to teach you to do. You're going to have to take actions. It's just like if somebody doesn't know how to have big muscles, they see everybody has different size muscles. How do I get big muscles? Well, you find out about this thing about weightlifting, which stresses the muscular tissues, which then respond by growing. You go, oh, that's how it happens. But if you don't get up off your ass and go to the gym and start lifting weights, you're not going to get those big muscles. Same thing here. I can talk about achieving 5D, creating your reality, learning how to manifest from the quantum field, but that knowledge doesn't do you any good if you don't follow the steps to get there. And that's what I give on this channel. You can go to the channel page itself and go onto the playlists, and you can go through what, all the free meditations and the free energy practices. Or if you're dead serious, like you're not here to screw around, you are here to accomplish this, then go here to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. My books are also helpful. You can find all of my books on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. You can see my pen name there, Michael William Denny. You can just search for me or go to michaelwilliamdenny.com. All right, now back to the subject. Why must you go through the dark night of the soul for your intentions to fully manifest in physical reality? How the quantum field actually creates your reality. This is what we're going to talk about. So, generally, I'm going to talk generally speaking, and then we're going to get more specific. Generally speaking, in order to, you do this all the time, you just don't realize it. So the first thing you need to understand is that what we perceive as physical reality, we perceive this as reality. This is actually a three-dimensional holographic projection. It has as much reality as the screen that you're looking at. So you see a picture of me moving my hands around and talking, but it's a two-dimensional picture. Your brain turns it into 3 dimensions, but you try and interact with me by touching the screen. You're not going to be able to interact with me. There's a delay. I'm essentially just a talking head. But if you watch a movie, for example, that has a script and actors, it's not real. It's just simply a projection. It doesn't have any interaction capabilities on its own, except for that you watch it. It's already been filmed. Things already been filmed. The end of the movie's already been laid out. You're just watching it and experiencing it and having a reaction to watching something. That's exactly what's happening here in the third dimension. The third dimension is not a 2-dimensional screen. It's a 3-dimensional holographic screen. And everything that's happening in this 3-dimensional holographic screen is being projected from a higher dimensional source. So trying to manifest your 3D physical reality, even if we get to what we call 5D, even from that, if you try and create your reality from that projected reality, that would be like trying to change a movie by trying to somehow change the color or the contrast on your screen. It's going to have no effect, except for maybe it'll be a little bit lighter or darker. But other than that, it's going to be, there's nothing you can do to change it. So you can't change your 3D physical reality by using your 3D physical tools, which includes your brain, which includes your emotions, which includes your thoughts. Now, here we're going to deviate from the law of attraction, which says that if you can muster up the feelings, then somehow the vibration of those feelings are going to align with already existing things like love and prosperity, and then those things will be magnetically attracted to you. But once again, what are we talking about? We're talking about 3-dimensional objects, so your assumption is all wrong. The only way to create is by having access to the 5th dimensional quantum field. Actually, the quantum field is beyond all of the dimensions, but as far as anything beyond 3D is, something. But the quantum field is beyond all of the dimensions. So in order to manifest, you have to have access to that. You can't have access to that from the 3rd dimension. So you can't feel your way into your reality. You can't think your way into your reality. You can't do it. You have to actually go to the quantum field, and when you're in the quantum field, then you can decide what you want to have created. The quantum field, you can look at it as like a computer that you're programming. So you're going to program the computer to then create the 3rd dimension. So you go there, you bring your intentions for that, you imagine it. That's how you create it. Your imagination creates the reality. Your intentions create the reality. And then you come back into your body and you sit back and watch the show. And what'll happen is it'll manifest in whatever form. So you got that part? You use your intention, your imagination in the quantum field, and that will then create the projection that you get to sit back and experience. So the whole point of coming into physical reality, again, is not to pay off karmic debts. You're not here to be punished. You're not here to learn something. This is what you hear whenever you hear somebody talk about reincarnation and karma. There will always be this assumption that you did something wrong and you've come back here to fix something you did wrong, or you're being punished. Most people conflate karma with sin. That's why when somebody says karma, I don't believe in karma. What they mean is that they don't want to admit that they're being punished for anything. But karma doesn't mean any of those things. Karma actually comes from from arm, to create. It's just the response of what you do comes back to you. You create something. So you create everything. That's all it's saying. You create everything in your reality. When you own that and you stop believing that there's some force out there that is, people like Christians will ask for God's will. If you were to get God, if you were to be able to do this, I can promise you this would happen. If you were to get God to appear in front of you and you were to say to God, God, what is your will for me? God would say, how am I supposed to know? It's not my life, it's your life. What do you want? That's what his response would be. He says, it's your life, not mine. So stop looking for somebody else to tell you what your life is about, first and foremost. Now, we run into another problem when it comes to manifestation. And again, we have the law of attraction to blame for that, which again, the law of attraction is really just a really watered down version. You don't realize this, but the law of attraction is really just a watered down version of Abrahamic religion. They've taken all of the specifics out of it, but it's still the same. Give you an example. The law of attraction says if you have negative feelings, then you're going to create a negative reality. That is really an extremely abusive parent. A true parent who loves you doesn't care what your feelings are. Your parent loves you simply because you exist. You're having a temper tantrum, you're angry with your parents, and you say to mom and dad, I hate you. Mom and dad say, I know, it's okay, come here, I love you, come on, it'll be all right. It's okay to be upset. You're sad, it's okay to be sad. You're mad, it's okay to be mad. But to believe that your negative feelings vibrate out there and then some negative thing vibrates back at you, that's a narcissistic parent who doesn't love you. That's a parent who says, you better knock that off. I'll give you something to cry about. Stop being so sad. Stop looking at me like that. You better have a good attitude. And then you learn to fake it. You learn to pretend. And you try really hard to be happy. You're not, but you try and be, because your parents will know if you're not happy. So you try and be happy as much as you can because they're intimidated by your feelings because they already feel guilty about themselves. So we can drop that whole nonsense. It's not how it works. How it works is this. The quantum field, if you want to call the quantum field God, you can. But now we have a God that has no agenda. God doesn't have a plan for you. God doesn't have his will for you. God isn't out there writing how you're supposed to live your life and then punishing you when you do it differently than what he wants. That's not how it's working. God, if you want to call the quantum field God, God has no agenda, which means God has no need for you to be or do anything. God cares about you, wants you to be happy. So the only response God would have is if you're unhappy, God would feel sad. I wish you were happier. But the other thing is that God isn't codependent. So God isn't going to, when you have a temper tantrum, is not going to then give you whatever you're demanding just so he doesn't have to listen to you whine and complain. God is perfectly capable of being with you in your pain. If you want to have a temper tantrum, he'll sit with you for 1 billion years while you rage and deal with it. You want to feel badly about yourself? You want to beat yourself up? The quantum field will sit with you for as long as you need. Not going to co-sign it, not going to give you what you want just because you're having a temper tantrum, because quantum field says, I know that's not what you really want. So again, God appears in front of you and you say, God, what is your will for me? God would say, the only thing I want is for you to give yourself what you truly desire. I will do everything to help you accomplish that. And I will only help you accomplish that. I won't buy into you damaging yourself or deviating from what you truly want. I'm not going to do that. I care about you too much. You want to have 1 billion lives while you try and do something that isn't your authentic desire? You can do that as many times as you want until you figure it out. When you finally figure it out that, oh, the whole purpose of me being here, I chose to be here so that I could create a virtual reality so that I could literally manifest all of the things that I want, all the things that make me happy. So with that in mind, you say to yourself, that sounds great, except my life is horrible. I don't have anything that I want. How is it that I'm manifesting everything, and yet you're telling me, Mahadeva, that the only way that this works is that as long as I focus on what I want, I get it. Well, I want $1 billion. Why don't I have $1 billion? I want a harem of 18-year-old bikini models. Why don't I have that? Well, the answer to that question is because that's not what you want. So the dark night of the soul is when you become aware that what you think you want is not what you want. When you become aware of that, you will go through a crisis. You will go through a crisis because you won't know the difference between what you want and what you have. You then, when you face that crisis, you then come to another crisis. And that crisis is you find out that you have been telling yourself you want a bunch of things that you've now come to realize are damaging to you. And this is, you're going to feel like, who's been lying to me this whole time? And part of that has to do with three-dimensional reality. But the other part of that is really about you wanting to follow your 3D human survival instinct, which says, I need to be part of the group. So let's go back in time. How did three-dimensional reality become created? Three-dimensional reality was created by you in your interdimensional, infinite spiritual state. So your true, authentic essence is as a deity, all-powerful, all-knowing, eternal, whatever deity you want to look at. I don't care in what spiritual tradition. Pick the deity you want. That's you. The most powerful deity you can imagine. That's you. Now, when you're in that state, it's beautiful and blissful, but it gets kind of monotonous. So you decide that you want to strengthen your power, your divine power to create. So you say, how do I do that? I mean, I'm an infinite deity. I can literally create universes. Just, I can burp and a universe will be created. So how do I really appreciate and enjoy this experience? And then you said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a really dense, lower vibrational realm. And in that realm, I'm going to put a planet. And on that planet, I am going to then create an avatar body. Now that takes a long period of time, because the avatar body that you eventually need to have is a body that actually has built within it spiritual technologies that allow you to access your higher dimensional self and to channel that higher dimensional self into this dense third dimensional reality where then you can create whatever you want. It's a video game. Now, in order for a video game to be fun, there has to be real stakes. You have to potentially lose your life. There have to be real problems and real challenges to go up against. Otherwise, it's not fun. And you created, within that three-dimensional reality, you created the rules. So this three-dimensional reality, in order for it to be a fully immersive experience, it's like being inside a mirrored fishbowl. You're inside the fishbowl, you try and look out, and all you see is, other things being reflected back, and you can't see out of it. You try and feel outside of it, you can't feel outside of it. You can only experience the illusion of being separate and isolated within this three-dimensional fishbowl mirrored sphere. So you created an animal because you created a being from within that you're going to eventually put your spirit into. So it took a while. So you started to create life, and from that, a fish, and an amoeba became a fish, and then a fish crawled out, and it became a this, and it became a that. And you're tinkering with it until finally you come up with probably a bunch of different options, and then you narrow it down to this one. You have this species, or these number of species of bipedal hominids walking around, very smart monkeys walking around, and you can do Australopithecine, or you can do Gigantopithecus, which by the way became Bigfoot. He became his own thing. And you got this on. There's the Homo sapiens. Let's use that one. And then, and here comes the conspiracy theory. And then, in order for that to work, you had to tinker with it. So you implanted into the DNA of this thing called chakras, the 7 chakras, which have to do with 7 actual levels of conscious reality. You then implanted into that this thing called kundalini, which is actually 5th dimensional energy that goes up the spinal column and shines through these chakras, and then you can with that you can manifest. And then on top of that, you decided to create an antenna, a transceiver, and that's called the pineal gland. And you have the third eye, which allows you to see through the pineal gland, and then you have the pineal gland itself, which is a crystal that is piezoelectric. When you put when you move it around, it creates energy. You built all of that software and hardware into that avatar you created. It's called human beings. And then you said, all right, now I'm going down. And you avatared yourself into a human being. Now, when you avatared yourself into a human being, you knew going into it that you had, like if you play a video game, you have, 10 lives. If you don't get it, if you don't win the game after 10 lives, you have to start all over again. So you know going into that you're going to do that. But in this case, it might be hundreds or thousands of lives. Just like a video game, when you're playing the video game, time slows down. And, oh my God, the ships are coming at you. And then when damn it, I lost the guy. And then you look at the clock and it's only been 5 minutes. You've been playing for 5 minutes, but it feels like, an hour. So each time that you incarnate as a human being, you get to bounce around and it feels, 80, 90 years, and it's a really long time, and you go through all that, and then you come out of it, and you go, when that one boss of that one level came up, I turned left instead of right. I got to go back, because I almost got it. And what you're almost getting is learning how to manifest. Because your goal when you master the game is when you're in the game, you manifest your deepest desires. But your avatar, your human physical monkey, is an animal that is a social animal. It can't survive in, human beings are a little bit different. We've now learned how to survive without, I don't have a whole lot of people in my life. We've learned how to survive without being super social anymore. But, 100,000 years ago, if you weren't part of a group of, smart monkeys walking around, you were going to die, period. End of story. So you learned physically, in order to survive, that you had to be part of the club. Otherwise, somebody else will come and kill you, an animal will come and kill you, you'll starve to death, you'll freeze to death, something like that will happen. So you still have that instinct within you. And in order for you to get to the point where you're at your divinity, you have to mature beyond the need to survive because of your animal need for social interaction, to be protected, which is another way of saying you have to learn to love yourself regardless of what anybody else thinks. But it is so deeply ingrained in you. You are so deeply, deeply ingrained just on a physical level that you do whatever the hell it takes in order for the group to like you. And if you're lucky enough, you might try and become the alpha, and then everybody has to do what you want. But even the alpha has a group of people supporting the alpha. I've noticed this when I've looked at, chimpanzees. Chimpanzees are, man, they're just brutal. They're brutal beings. But the alpha, the one that walks around and, makes all the, throws things around, the alpha is not usually the biggest, strongest chimpanzee. There's usually one or two that are much bigger and stronger than the alpha who is keeping him up. They act as the enforcers. But for some reason, they don't want to be alpha. The alpha will be a big male, but he won't be the biggest. And so even the alpha has to make sure that his inner circle likes him. So the whole point of being human being is you got to have people like you or you won't survive. You feel like you're going to die. Your strongest instinct is to stay alive, to stay physically alive. And so in order to access your ability to go to the quantum field and create reality, you must evolve beyond that physical need to have everybody love you and like you. And it's not about being the tough guy, who wears a leather jacket and says, I don't follow any rules. That's a guy trying to be alpha male. He's actually the opposite. He wants everybody to like him. And then there's this whole nonsense on YouTube of Sigma male. And what this is these are just beta males who are angry and insecure, and they pretend like they're not beta males, and so they know they're not alphas, so they pretend to be sigmas. I'm not like any of you. I don't need it. It's all a bunch of nonsense. It's all a bunch of posturing. The whole thing is just a bunch of bullshit. All of it. Don't believe me? Watch the nonsense that's happening in government right now. It's all a bunch of... It's just a bunch of posturing. It means nothing. There's nothing there. So you have to get past that. But in order to get past that, you have to go through the dark night of the soul, which is very painful, where you actually become willing to die. You become willing to die. You don't actually die. You don't commit suicide. You become willing to die. That can only happen. It won't happen because you've become spiritually evolved. So let me tell you a scenario that doesn't happen. The scenario you've been led to believe is the Jesus scenario, which of course is created to keep you into the narrative, keep you wanting to be loved and accepted. But the Jesus scenario is that Jesus doesn't want anything. He's perfect. He has no desires. He's just filled with love, but love for everything other than himself. He has love for his Father. He has love for his creation, but he doesn't have any love for himself. And so his narcissistic father, who wants to be alpha, says to his children, bunch of chimpanzees, the group of chimpanzees running around, he says, if you don't do what I want, and if you don't do what I want exactly the way that I want it, I'm gonna destroy you. I'm gonna do worse than destroy you. I'll keep you alive and I'll torture you in hell forever. So you better do everything the way I want it done. And then what ends up happening is all the chimpanzees find out real quick that they can't, it's impossible. That what the alpha wants is absolutely impossible. I can't do it. So then comes along the Jesus character who doesn't want anything except to please the alpha and to to love you. You've been told that's what spirituality is. I don't have, and people say this all the time, I don't have any ego. That's all bullshit. You can't not have an ego. It's not possible. You are a deity. It's impossible to be an infinite deity without having an ego. It's impossible. The only question is whether or not your ego is narcissistic or not. It's either individuated, which when you get to the state of individuation, which is the point of all spirituality, true spirituality, the point of all psychotherapy is to get you individuated. When you become individuated, then you become aware that what you truly want is also what is helpful and beneficial for all life. This is not the narcissistic way. The narcissist says, what I want is most important, so you better like it. So yeah, what I want is best, and you have to like it. That's narcissism. Individuation says, actually, I'm connected to everything. And the unbound desire within me to live and to satisfy my desires, to completely embody my spiritual need to exist and experience joy and love on a boundless scale, that's what everything wants. When I experience that, I am helping all of creation experience that. And when any part of consciousness does that, I immediately feel it within myself. So you get rid of this, should I make myself happy or make other people happy? Which is the whole law of one bullshit nonsense, the whole Christian bullshit nonsense, which says, I can't have a desire, I'm only here for you, I'm just the ultimate codependent. Being individuated means you do not bow down to other people's inauthentic expressions of themselves. You have compassion for them, you love them, you help everybody who wants to be helped. But in order to want to be helped, you have to want to actually do the work to experience your authenticity. I've shared this example numerous times. It's the best one I know of. This is when I first became aware of my new hero, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he was talking about doing these seminars that he does to awaken the pineal gland. And as he's going through these seminars and teaching people how to meditate, to heal themselves, to manifest their reality, he becomes aware that there are these beings, these spiritual light beings that are like, lining the walls. And he's wondering what the hell's going on. Other people start to notice that there's these beings on the wall. Do you see them? And so he contacts them, I suppose through meditation, and he says, why don't you guys come in and help? And they said, we can't. You're at a level that is at a vibration that is damaging to us. And if we were to lower our vibrations to be in your vibrational level, we would be hurting ourselves. And we love ourselves too much to hurt ourselves. But if you raise your vibration, we'll meet you halfway. That's individuation, which is not what you're taught. What you're taught is that Jesus came down and he made himself human so that his narcissistic father could pour out all of his rage because he's told you what to do and he's a control freak and you won't do everything he says exactly the way that he wants it, even though you're trying as best you can. He gets so bent out of shape that he gets murderously rageful at you, and he has to take that rage out on somebody. So he takes it out on his codependent son, who has no desire, who has no individuated self, who's only there to slake God's murder lust. And then and this is biblical. I mean, if you go to church, they tell you this. Then he takes the blood of his son, his slain son, that he's poured out all of his rage onto, and then he wipes it on your face so that when he looks at you, he can only see the blood of the innocent lamb he's slaughtered, and then he can tolerate your presence. But if somehow you wash the blood, and then he gets rageful at you again because he sees that you're not exactly what he wants and he tries to kill you. All of that is about being accepted. All of that is about not accepting your own authentic reality. So, in order for the quantum field to manifest what you want, you must imagine what your heart really wants. Now, if you are an individuated person, which, if I were perfectly individuated, I wouldn't be here. I would be vibrating at such a level I wouldn't be in a physical body. So obviously I'm still learning how to individuate as well. But if you are perfectly individuated, then when you go to the quantum field, you know exactly what it is that makes you truly happy, and you imagine it, and it immediately manifests. There's no time lag. So you walk around, and the universe is creating itself as you go exactly the way that you want it. And so you would be a God walking around on earth. You're not there yet, I assume. So what you have to learn how to do is learn the difference between the false desire to be accepted by the chimpanzees and the true desire, which is about simply manifesting what you want most deeply. And the dark night of the soul is when you become conscious of all of the ways that you are destroying yourself. All of the ways you are punishing yourself. All of the ways that you've talked yourself out of what you truly want because you want to be loved and accepted. So I'll give you an example in my life. As you know, my whole thing is surfing. That's the main reason that I'm here. I can't imagine being on this planet without being able to surf. I just don't know how I would do it. So that gives me the greatest joy. Now, if you're a surfer, you can't just go surfing anywhere. You have to go surfing someplace where the conditions are right. I happen to want to go surfing when in places where there's warm water and there's sunlight, there's no sharks, there aren't crowded beaches. I want to be able to go surfing, with few people or all by myself. I want the waves to be really good. I want them not to be too big or too small. I want the conditions just right. So you have to find the place in the world, Hawaii. That's why people love Hawaii. Places like that. It's got all those things. So I found the place where I'm at now. This is where I'm living. And for years, what would happen is I would go surfing out here and I would have so much fun because it's just everything. It's just my ultimate fantasy. And then what would happen is I would come in out of the water and I would get back home, and then my body would start to lock up, my shoulders especially. My neck and my shoulders would get so stiff and I couldn't sleep because I'd be in so much pain. Now, I was telling myself what seemed obvious, which was that I was overtraining my muscles and my muscles were stiff. So in order to surf, every time I surfed, I had to go get a massage. That gets pretty expensive. If I'm surfing 3-4 times a week, I'm getting a massage 3-4 times a week. But I had to do it until I started really facing within me the guilt that I had about doing what I wanted, living where I wanted to live and having everything that I wanted. I started realizing I had guilt about that. I felt guilty for giving myself my greatest desires. And I didn't understand what that was about. Sometimes I'd go surfing and I'd come out and I couldn't even move my hand. There would be so much pain. My joints would be so stiff. And I realized one day, whatever it is that's happening, that isn't a result from that physical movement. That physical movement could not cause that kind of pain. It's not possible. And I became aware as I sat with the pain and I asked my body, why are you so angry? Why are you in so much pain? And I became aware that I had been programmed by my mother and my brother to feel guilty whenever I was happy, because they were extremely unhappy. They didn't love themselves at all. And so whenever I would go out and accomplish something, same thing with my father, if I accomplished something, scholastically, he'd be proud of me, but he would be very intimidated by that. Even though the man was a genius physicist, didn't matter. My brother never accomplished anything with his life, so if anything I did made him intimidated. He was very abusive. And then my mother, who was incredibly clingy, codependent, and overprotective. If I looked like I was going to go and create my own reality, separate myself from the family, she would get all bent out of shape and she would just heap guilt on me. Now, this was on a deeply unconscious level. So throughout most of my early adulthood, I never accomplished anything. I was just, I was smart and talented, but people would say, why isn't Mike, master of this? Because I would guilt myself out of it. And before I knew it, I'd be broke and have to run back home and say, can I borrow some money? And so that's how I learned how to keep the chimpanzees happy. So my life was really based on how I could get love and approval from my family, which meant I had to squish myself down. I had to beat myself up. I had to not be what I wanted. Now, as you know, those of you who know me, you know that I'm very self-oriented in a good way. I don't let anything come between me and what I want. And I teach people how to experience that. So now I've got this conflict. Every time I go and back then, past tense, every time I went and surfed perfect waves in perfect conditions and I had all this joy come out of me, in order to feel like a good person, unconsciously I would start beating myself up. I would start giving myself all this physical pain and tendonitis, and I was just it was a problem. It was like, man, how am I going to keep surfing if it just causes me so much pain? And when I became aware that what I was doing was beating myself up for what I truly wanted, I then started meditating and talking to my body and talking to my soul and explaining to myself, going back and talking to my childhood self and pulling myself aside and saying, you don't have to please anybody. You're not a bad person. I've now come to realize that the most spiritual thing I can do for the entire conscious multiverse is to surf. It's the most healing, most evolving, it's the most generous thing I can do for the whole universe is to go out and surf. Because then I'm in touch with my soul. And then I'm happy. And then I share that. And just in that moment when I'm feeling happy because I'm experiencing my greatest joy, that goes into all conscious beings. But the third dimension is trying to teach you not to do that. The third dimension is trying to teach you to be part of the chimpanzee group. So whatever that is, if you have to beat yourself up like I did, or if you have to minimize yourself, or if you're a codependent, you go around trying to fix everybody. But the problem is that your soul never signed on to that. Your physical brain and body has that built into it because you're just a chimpanzee. You're a chimpanzee with 7 chakras in it and a pineal gland. And so your soul, which connects to your chakras and connects to your kundalini and connects to the pineal gland, that is now at war with the physical mental part of you that says, I have to be part of I have to be part of the chimpanzee tribe or I won't survive. And so there's this war. So what happens when you go to the quantum field and you start to listen to your soul and you start to ask your soul, what is it that I truly want? And you start to then imagine things Like you will imagine, you want to be a musician, you want to be a ballerina, you want to be a healer, you want to be a artist, you want to be a parent, whatever it is that when you think about it, your soul just expands into this beautiful place. Whatever part of you is still attached to being accepted by the chimpanzees is going to fight back hard. And that's your dark night of the soul. You're going to have to die. You will have to psychologically die to that. But the challenge is that your unconscious mind has been programmed to make sure that you survive at all costs. So you have to train your unconscious mind to be aware that your survival is not about being part of the tribe of chimpanzees, but your survival is about getting back to your infinite deity state while in your physical body. Doesn't count when you die. You physically die, you're pulled out of all that, you're no longer a chimpanzee, and then you're back and oh, that's right, this is what it was all about. Oh, this is reality. Oh, I like it here so much better. Doesn't count. The whole point of the video game is to be in your chimpanzee brain and body with your soul in there, and then to transform that psychologically so that your focus is not to escape the matrix, which is trying to escape pain. Let me give you, let's just deal with that for a second. So if you're listening to me and your first response is, I want out of this hell, I want out of this prison planet, you're not there. You're just now in pain and you're screaming out in pain. And you can't accomplish anything from that. This is why victims never accomplish anything. Victims, even if they know, like, listen, I could easily go on for hours about what is really going on in government, what is really going on, in the world. I could go on for hours about the deep state, cabal, and all the really horrific things that are going on, that have gone on in this world, all of the lies that are being shoved down your throat now. The government is pretending to look at the truth behind UFOs, and it's all a smokescreen. It's all designed eventually to make you just part of the chimpanzee state. I could go on for hours talking about that, but so what? All that does is bring you back to feeling afraid and feeling guilty and all of that. So anybody who complains about wanting to escape, you're just trying to escape your own pain, and nothing gets accomplished from that. As an actor, when I was an actor, and it's a great, actually learning to act is a great way to understand how humans really function. Because in order to act, you have to look at a scene and you look at the character and you say, what does this character want? Now, you'll be acting and the director will stop and say, what does your character want in that moment? And people will say things like, well, I don't want to get caught. And then the director will say, that's not a choice. Your choice has to be positive. You can't play a negative. So if you want to know what a bad actor is, like when you're watching a movie and the acting is bad, that's a person playing a negative, what they don't want. I don't want to get caught. If, however, you realize that you're doing this because you want to steal the diamond so you can save your family and heal the world, then that gives you an emotional positive to go after. The other stuff is just details. Getting the diamond, breaking the rules, all that. That's just the details. The point is the healing of your family that you truly love. It's very positive. When you see that and you feel that, then even if they're the bad guy or they're the anti-hero, all of a sudden you like them. This is why it's, when you watch Anthony Hopkins and he's playing, that serial killer, you can't help but like the guy. Even though he's a psychopathic murderer, you end up liking him because the actor is playing positive. He's decided that, if you watch those movies, Hannibal Lecter is very moral, and he doesn't like fake people, and he always, he's got this morality within him, and that's what makes him so interesting to watch. But if he just played an evil guy that wanted to hurt you, then you wouldn't give a crap. So when you're in the quantum field, if your motivation is to not be in pain, to not be trapped, to not be this, the quantum field goes, okay, but what do you want? I can't give you what you don't want. That doesn't mean anything. Tell me what you want. And what you want will always be positive. You can't focus on fear and still be focusing on what you truly want. So you find out real quick that your fears are about physical survival and being part of the troop, part of the chimpanzee troop. When you find out what it is you truly want, you separate from that. You individuate. You become your own self-contained deity that is connected to all life. You realize that the only thing that has ever mattered in the multiverse is you experiencing joy. Now, again, I have to stop because joy is not the same as pleasure. Maybe you can have joy and pleasure at the same time, but lots of times you can have pleasure without joy. Diddling yourself to porn is pleasure. It doesn't accomplish anything. It might distract you, might release some tension, but it doesn't make your life any better. You don't evolve as a person. Making love to your husband or your wife in order to deepen your connection, and maybe if you bring spirituality into it, then sex becomes something altogether different. Wanting money is meaningless. So again, the law of attraction, a lot of people go after the law of attraction. They want to win the lottery. They want to make $1 million. It doesn't mean anything because it's not the money. Money, you believe you can't do the things that make you happy unless you have money, and that's just not true. But if you go after what you truly want, and money is a necessary part of it, the quantum field will manifest the money. So the dark night of the soul is being able to go through the psychological death of not chasing after your acceptance, your physical survival dependent on being accepted by the group. You have to go beyond that. You have to be willing to have your mother and your father not love you. You have to be willing to psychologically kill your parents, not physically, psychologically. And the New Testament, although I'm definitely not a Christian, as you just heard, but there's one passage in the New Testament which is actually very beautiful, and I think probably because it was stolen. By the way, all of the sayings of Jesus, like the Sermon on the Mount, those were actually sayings from contemporary spiritual leaders of the time that the writers of the New Testament grabbed and put it in there because it sounded good. So the stuff that's good is stuff that was already out there being said by somebody else. Of course, because Jesus didn't exist. So, but there's one scripture or this one passage where Jesus is going through Galilee, I think it is. And as he passes through this town in Galilee, this very faithful Jewish guy comes running out of his house. And he says to Jesus, gets on his knees and says, Rabbi, I want to follow you. Just wait. I have to bury my parents. And as soon as I bury them, I'm going to come with you. To which the fictional Jesus responds and he says, let the dead bury themselves. If you're not willing to sacrifice mother, father, sister, brother, wife, you're not worthy of me. To which the man became very sad and he slumped back home because he knew that he wasn't worthy. Now, unless you know something about Jewish culture, you don't know how how significant that is. Because in Jewish culture, you have to bury your parents within 24 hours. And if you don't do that, you are the worst Jew that ever lived. You are heaping disrespect on your parents and all of your ancestors and the entire Jewish community. So what it meant was that that guy wanted to be loved and accepted more than he wanted to follow his soul. That's the meaning of that fictional interaction. And that is the perfect reality. If you're not willing to sacrifice mother, father, sister, brother, wife, president, God himself, if you're not willing to sacrifice them for your own soul's enjoyment, you are not worthy of the path. Which means that you will not experience the fruits of the path. You are worthy because the only thing that gives you value is your consciousness. Remember, you're a deity. Any being that is conscious is a deity. So there's nothing that any conscious being needs to accomplish in order to have validity, in order to be lovable. They exist. What does the sun have to do to get your acknowledgement? Nothing. Look at it. It exists. It's just there, man. It's just being itself 24/7. It's purely in the joy of loving itself all the time. And that's what your soul is doing. So in order to get the quantum field to listen to you, you don't go there trying to be something. You don't go there thinking about how to control other people or make them do things. You don't even go there wanting to fix other people. You go there so that you can experience the joy within yourself. Now, to be in 3D reality means that you have to do something on a physical level because this is 3D space-time. 3D space-time is dominated by action. In fact, if there was no action, there would be no time. There would be no space. So the definition of 3D space-time means action, movement. So whatever it is that brings you joy is something that you do. And the only way to get the quantum field to open up and connect with you is that when you are doing that thing that your soul said, this is why I came here. I came here to serve. There's other stuff that I do, which, come 2 and 3, doing this, I need to do this. I would do this anyway. I get filled with these awarenesses and this knowledge, and if I don't blurt it out, and if I don't rant for an hour, if I don't release it, I go crazy. So I'm not doing this to kiss your ass or to save you. Everything I do on this channel is because I need to get it out. On a third level, I want to see the world come together and be a beautiful place. So in order for me to live in the perfect world I want to live in, then I have to teach people what I know. So I make myself available to teach people whatever it is they want. I'm not doing it for you. I mean, I care about you. Anybody that asks and really wants to learn, I will teach. And I've created a way to do that, which is you go here to thunderwizard.com and subscribe, or you just go on and be a self-taught person going on to the playlists and doing what's on it. But if you're not doing that, I have no time for you. If you're doing anything other than bravely and fearlessly going after what you want, and maybe you need some guidance doing that, I'm here for you. If you're not doing that, I have no time for you. This is why I'm no longer taking questions from people who aren't subscribers. If you're not subscribed to the 90-day challenge, I don't have time for you because you've already proven that either you're not that interested, which is okay, you don't have to be interested in my channel, so you're either not that interested in my channel, or if you are and you want what I have, you're not willing to die to yourself enough to go get it. I learned that the hard way, myself is true, but everybody I've taught, unless it costs you something, if it costs you something and you're willing to pay whatever that is, time, discipline, money, whatever it is, It means that you want it. And if you want it, you will do whatever it takes. If you're not doing whatever it takes, it means that you are kissing the ass of the chimpanzee in front of you. You're trying to get somebody to love you, even on an unconscious level. Your parents are dead, but you still beat yourself up and smoke weed all day. That's you destroying yourself so that your parents will love you. Or that's you trying to escape the self-hatred and damage you're doing to yourself, which is another way of just wanting to be accepted. But you have to be willing to destroy this three-dimensional reality, and the way you destroy that is by allowing your multi-dimensional soul to shine through. And when that happens, you create a reality. You create everything you want. I keep bumping into this. I just bumped into it past couple of days and I realized, holy crap, I'm punishing myself. I've been punishing myself for, a certain way that I interact with my reality. Wow, I've been beating myself up this whole time and it, makes me frightened and miserable. And I realized that I don't have to do that. And all I had to do was just completely, totally, once again, accept what I want my reality to be, and say to myself, that's what I'm going to have, and nothing's going to stop me. I'm willing to face that. When that demon inside of me comes up and the guilt and the fear comes up, I'm going to go, I know what you are. You're just trying to get me to kiss that chimpanzee's behind, and I'm not going to do it. And I'm willing to live with that discomfort while I act contrary to that. By the way, if you're listening to me and you like this and you have not, if you have consciously chosen to not watch the 12-step videos, you will not understand what I'm talking about. If you truly, I look at how many views are on it. As I expected, the 12-step videos have less views than the let's escape the prison planet. If I write escape the prison planet, the views are going to go through the roof. But if I say step 4, how the work that you have to do to face yourself, I don't want to look at that. Shows me you're not willing to do the work. And as I've said before, if you don't do the work, you're not going to get the benefits. And the good news is, if you do the work, you will get the benefits. And the benefits are to be in authentic communion with your soul and to be acting authentically from the desires of your soul, which is the most liberating, beautiful, powerful thing you can do for all conscious beings, all the rest of the 12th dimensional deities. I guarantee you, when you operate from your soul, giving yourself what you truly want, the 12th dimensional deities go, oh my God, that feels so good. That person is loving themselves. You want to be a spiritual person? Learn how to spiritually be selfish. Learn how to spiritually become identified with yourself. What was the word I was looking for? Anyway, flew out of my head. All right, so that's it. I think I've said everything I want to say. So we've got, I give you this quantum meditation. So that's a step-by-step process to do it. If you keep in mind what I want, that when you imagine yourself, notice I didn't say when you get to the quantum field, because some of you are going to feel like you're not able to do it, which isn't true. You're already connected to it. So when you meditate and you imagine yourself in the quantum field and you imagine what you want and you listen to your soul, you listen to your heart. And when your heart tells you to do that thing, you feel guilty and silly. I don't want to be a ballerina. I want to be a musician, but when you listen to that part of you that you feel silly about, and you then just let yourself go into that fantasy, which brings you the greatest joy, the quantum field starts to put it all together. And then your reality will start to reflect that, and you will either have to act on that and take that risk, and like I've done, get on a plane, not knowing how I'm gonna survive and go to another country, and I don't know how I'm gonna pull it off, but I want to do it. You know, when you take action against, contrary to your fears, but in alignment with your vision of yourself, then you will have the ability to overcome that chimpanzee inside of you that just wants to be loved and approved of. And then you can identify with the infinite deity within. And that is best accomplished by working the 12 steps. And I've created, you know, I'm in the process of giving the 12 steps in videos here. You know, I've got it listed here. You can go watch those videos, and you can, you know, do those to the best of your ability. And hopefully, if you do that, you'll be able to sponsor somebody else and teach them how to do that. Anyway, so that's my vision for reality today. All right. So having said that, if you are a subscriber, if you're subscribed to the 90-day Warrior 90-day challenge, and you have a question of that material, or what I've talked about, how that relates to the material, I'm happy to answer your question. If not, then spend more time. If you're not one of those subscribers, then spend more time on the channel learning it, or subscribe. Or you can get a session with me. Other than that, I'm not going to answer any questions if it's not connected to that. And look at that, there aren't any questions. What do you know? Okay, so I guess we're done. Thank you, everybody. You know the drill. ThunderWizard.com. Scroll around, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. By the way, I've made it easier. Once you've subscribed and you're on that page, let me show you where it is. Once you subscribe and you're on that page, you see those little squares just above where it says Guided Interdimensional Meditation. You see all those squares? You see Lightning Qigong, you see 90-Day. Just click on Lightning Qigong and 90-Day, and you will see all of the videos there. And just follow the instructions. Start with phase 1. There's a morning, afternoon, and evening practice. You can do all 3 of them or pick one of them, but do something once per day. And then there's different phases. Go through all of the phases and keep watching the channel and do your best. I guarantee you will change. If you just press play, the videos that you're going to watch, you're just going to press play, and I'm just going to be doing some physical practices and energy practices and some meditations. And you just follow instructions. Just do what I do. You don't have to know what's going on. You don't have to get all yourself together. People say, I'm going to subscribe, but I need to spend more time getting prepared. No, you don't. That's why I created it. You just press play and follow instructions. It's the simplest thing you could do. And then what will happen is this stuff will come up, and you will become aware of that monkey part of you that wants to be accepted, and you'll be aware of the spiritual part of you. You'll be aware of the conflict within you, and you'll be able to choose, you know, which path you want to go. That's the whole point of it. Courses.thunderwizard.com. You can see all of my services, my Vedic astrology, my rune readings. You can see all of my certification videos that you can learn all kinds of different things, Qigong, and just there's no shortage of things. And then, of course, my books, which you can find. You see my name, Michael William Denny, here written. You can go to michaelwilliamdenny.com. And you can also just look for me on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. Interdimensional Revolution and Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth are the 2 latest ones, which, you know, interestingly enough, I wrote this long before there's this supposed government, you know, congressional hearings on the existence of aliens and UFOs. Surprise, surprise. Well, you're going to find out what's really going on, and you'll know what a farce that whole thing is. It's a complete farce. What's happening there? They are not telling you the truth. They're not telling you what the real issues are, and they're not even telling you the information that has been given to them. They are, as I feared, unfortunately, so far the government and the Pentagon are lying to you about what's really going on. And if you want to know the truth, get these books and you'll know. All right, no questions, so I guess we're done. Thanks, guys, for showing up. I wish you all the best. I will see you all next time. And here is the quantum meditation. You can go ahead and just do this as it's written and Remember some of these things we've been talking about, and I guarantee you things will start to shift for you.